Hi, sorry, I'm glad you found your way through. The study's so chaotic at the moment that I thought I'd be out in the hut, really, which I think you visited once before. It's normally where I do my writing, and this is my manuscript book. I'm working on the Arthurian poems, but I also do some reading out there, and I've had a book of Shelley's out that you'd like to see. So here we are. Also a kind of farewell. We've decided it's too complicated and expensive to take the whole thing down and reconstruct it in the new house. But I am going to it's actually cheaper to have a new one made in the new house, which will be slightly bigger but not so interestingly shaped. So I'm making the most of my last summer month, the last few weeks really, in the Temple of Peace, as I call it. Come along. We'll put that manuscript book down here. So here we are. There's my green man and my other pipe racks and my lovely Chinese scroll painting and various oddments. Anyway, look here. Let me just show you this. I think I may have shown you this before. This is the Folio Society. They do these nice boxed volumes of the major poets, and this is the Shelley one. I got it for about £15 or £20 second hand, beautifully bound. I particularly like this. It's got these very let me just get my glasses on. It's got these very Shelleyan motifs. There's the Ozymandias, King of Kings. There's the lovely boat, the Don Juan, that he sailed in, and which was his famous last voyage. There are the autumn leaves of, the Wild West wind. Anyway, last time you were here, we had a little look together at Gray's Elegy in a country churchyard, and the curfew tolls the knell of parting day and everything. So that sort of put me in the mood for elegy. Gray's is a very sort of measured Augustan elegy, but of course one of the most famous elegies in English. Here it is again, look. This is Adonais, a Greek name, but which he used as a sort of epithet pseudonym for Keats. And here's the engraver here, still beautiful. There's Keats writing, and there's the Shelley's boat and the wind again. And there's Shelley on the shore contemplating the death of Keats. So, as you know, Keats died young, and it was very much believed that his death had been hastened by incredibly savage and unfair criticism of his poetry, really scornful writing about. Of course, now he's recognised as one of the greatest poets in English. But these really rather minor figures, but who had literary influence. I was rereading Shelley's preface to this about how angry he was and how upset by the sheer callousness of the critics of Keats. And I felt like I was reading an account of Twitter. And the horrible way people treat each other on social media. This is Shelley about the way Keats is treated. It may be said that these wretched men know not what they do. They scatter their insults and their slanders without heed as to whether the poisoned shaft lights on a heart made callous by many blows, or one like Keats, composed of more penetrable stuff. So I thought I'd read you a few verses from it. It starts, as every elegy should, by just acknowledging and giving voice to lament. It starts with just the two words, I weep. I weep for Adonais, he's dead. Oh, weep for Adonais, I weep. I ask you to weep. I weep for Adonais, he is dead. Oh, weep for Adonais, though our tears thaw not the frost which binds so dear a head. So there's a whole series of extraordinarily beautiful verses about weeping, and he appeals to the muse and asks the muse herself, Urania, to weep, and as though a mother were weeping for her child, as though all of us as poets are like the muse's children, and she cares for us and what happens to us. And now thy youngest, dearest one has perished. the nursling of thy widowhood, who grew like a pale flower by some sad maiden cherished, and fed with true love tears instead of dew. Most musical of mourners, weep anew thy extreme hope, the loveliest and the last, the bloom whose petals nipped before they blew, died on the promise of the fruit, is waste, the broken lily lies, the storm is overpast. And he imagines all these different almost elements or echoes of the poetry of Keats personified, coming to mourn from him all that he loved and moulded into song, as he says. And then he has a really beautiful thing, which anybody who's endured a long, deep grief will know, which is about how the seasons come and go, but they can't be the same seasons to you, because you're without your loved one. And yet, you know, ah, woe is me, winter is come and gone, but grief returns with the revolving year. The airs and streams renew their joyous tone, the ants, the bees, the swallows reappear, fresh leaves and flowers deck the dead season's bier. The amorous birds now pair in every brake, and build their mossy homes in field and brier. And the green lizard and the golden snake, like unimprisoned flames, out of their trance awake. So there's a wonderful poetic evocation of the spring. And yet, where's Keats? Alas, that all we loved of him should be but for our grief, as if it had not been, and grief itself be mortal. Woe is me, whence are we, and why are we? Of what scene the actors or spectators? Great and mean meet massed in death, who lends what life must borrow. As long as skies are blue and fields are green, evening must usher night, night urge the morrow, month follow month with woe, and year wake year to sorrow. That's the kind of almost low point of the poem. There's a kind of bleakness, and yet even in the bleakness there's extraordinary beauty. But then, as is well known, there's a great turn, there's a great change, there's a great hint that somehow the greatness of Keats can't be confined simply to this mortal body. And there are speculations about a kind of waking to a newer and more powerful life through death. Peace, peace, he is not dead, he doth not sleep. He hath awakened from the dream of life. 'Tis we who lost in stormy visions keep with phantoms and unprofitable strife. And then comes the famous, the great passage which is so widely and justly celebrated. Poetry at its highest. He has outsoared the shadow of our night. Envy and calumny and hate and pain, and that unrest which men miscall delight, can touch him not, and torture not again. From the contagion of the world's slow stain he is secure, and now can never mourn a heart grown cold, a head grown grey in vain, nor when the spirit's self has ceased to burn, with sparkless ashes load an unlamented urn. And then, although Shelley claimed to be an atheist, he starts echoing biblical language, with death itself swallowed up in victory. He lives, he wakes, 'tis death is dead, not he. Mourn not for Adonais, thou young dawn, turn all thy due to splendour, for from thee the spirit thou lamentest is not gone. Ye caverns and ye forests, cease to moan, cease ye faint flowers and fountains, and thou air which like a mourning veil thy scarf hast thrown o'er the abandoned earth, now leave it bare even to the joyous stars which smile on its despair. He is made one with nature. There is heard his voice in all her music, from the moan of thunder to the song of night's sweet bird. He is a presence to be felt and known in darkness and in light, from herb and stone, spreading itself where'er that power may move, which has withdrawn his being to its own. Now he is speaking about God, although he scarcely dares to name him. He calls him that power. And what does that power do? That power which has withdrawn his being to its own, which wields the world with never wearied love, sustains it from beneath and kindles it above. I just think that is great spiritual poetry. This hidden power that wields the world with never wearied love, sustains it from beneath and kindles it above. He is a portion of the loveliness which once he made more lovely. He doth bear his part, while the one spirit's plastic stress sweeps through the dull dense world, compelling there all new successions to the forms they wear, torturing the unwilling dross that checks its flight to its own likeness, as each mass may bear, and bursting in its beauty and its might, from trees and beasts and men into the heavens light. Just superb affirmation that there's something in us that can't be lost and that will be loved and cherished, and then, you know, made a portion of the loveliness which once he made more lovely. And of course he finishes the poem with an evocation of himself sailing, and himself died sailing a year later. There's that final voyage, and again, in a sense, it becomes the soul's ship, sailing rather like Frodo does when he leaves the Grey Havens and sails along the straight path beyond the walls of this world. Anyway, maybe I'm reading elegies partly because I have an elegiac sense of, you know, leaving all this loveliness. I mean, there will be new loveliness, but it's been a beautiful place to be, Linton, and I particularly like my little hut here. It's been the scene of much writing, and I've written my psalm poems and quite a lot of my Arthur poems here. So it's good to be in it and to enjoy it from it, and good that you found your way around through the conservatory and out to find me here. That's great. Good to see you. Cheers.